Good day. Today I want to talk about the Hammer of Feanor. Right, so in episode 2 of the Rings of Power, we got a new item, the Hammer of Feanor, which is it's a really nice nod to the history of the First Age, before the First Age, that brings us to the Second Age when Rings of Power is set. Now, it makes sense as an item to be something that is a sort of artifact of Valinor, of Fëanor. So really it's critical to a certain extent to talk about Fëanor. Now, I'm going to read from quite an old book of mine, by David Day, and talk about Fëanor. So Fëanor, Elven Prince of Eldamar, the creator of the Silmarils, i.e. what the Silmarillion is all about. Fëanor was the son of the Noldor High King Finwë and Queen Miriel. Called Cura Finwë at birth, he was later named Fëanor, meaning Spirit of Fire. In Eldamar he married Nerdanel, and by her sired 7 sons. Fëanor was the genius who first created elven gems, those magic crystals filled with starlight. He also made the Palantiri, the seeing stones. Pictures appearing here of the Palantir that are still around when we get to Lord of the Rings. Fëanor's greatest deed was the forging of the Silmarils, the 3 gems filled with the living light of the trees of the Valar. The most beautiful gems in the world, they became a curse upon Fëanor and his race. Melkor destroyed the trees of light. He murdered Fëanor's father, took the Silmarils and fled to Middle-earth. Fëanor led the Noldor to Middle-earth in pursuit of Melkor, who he renamed Morgoth, meaning the Dark Enemy. Now, what this entry fails to mention at this point, which is worth mentioning, is, and this is something that's a distinction where we can separate Fëanor's route to Middle-earth and Galadriel's route to Middle-earth. Now, Fëanor and those who follow him commit what is considered quite a heinous act to get to Middle-earth, because they rebel against the Valar. And the elves at the port of Aquilond, I believe it is, essentially, when Fëanor and his Noldor elves get there, say, "We want your ships." The elves go, "No." Fëanor goes, "Well, if you don't give them to me, I'm going to take them." They go, "No, you're not." And then Fëanor and that slaughter a load of these loyal elves so they can get their ships and pursue Morgoth to Middle-earth. And it's known as like the kinslaying, which is not a very nice thing. But this is an indication of how passionate Fëanor is. I'm not saying he's a good guy. He is worthy of respect for his skill. It's just he's a bit of a bellend. Anyway, when Fëanor's Noldor entered into Beleriand, they met Morgoth's challenge in the 10-day battle under the stars and slaughtered his huge Orcish army. However, Fëanor recklessly rode ahead of his army and in pursuit of the Orcs. Separated from his bodyguard, Fëanor was surrounded by Balrogs and was slain by their lord Gothmog, the High Captain of Angband. Now, that glosses over what would be an awesome scene to see at some point. Fëanor does ride ahead of his people, and he is ambushed by Balrogs. Not one Balrog. I believe, if I remember rightly, I think it's like 49 Balrogs ambush Fëanor. They have a battle, so it's not just they ambush and shiv him. They have a battle from which Gothmog slays or mortally wounds Fëanor. So this is an indication of how powerful Fëanor is, because if we fast forward to Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring Two Towers, when the Fellowship goes through Khazad-dûm, they wake the Balrog. And obviously they can't fight it other than Gandalf. Gandalf fights the Balrog. And let's put into context, both Gandalf and the Balrog are both demigods, Maya, as they're called in Tolkien lore. They are of equal power. And they slay each other in their fight. Obviously Gandalf is victorious, dies, and then is reborn as Gandalf the White. Fëanor battles 49 of them. Okay, he doesn't win the fight, but he battles them. They don't just squish Fëanor. It is a fight. 49 Balrogs. So, Fëanor, in all honesty, bit of a bellend. Quite passionate, fair to say. Genius Smith creates all these things. Probably not the best sort of people person. You can debate that. I mean, it's... If you have these magnificent artifacts stolen by the big bad, you're going to seek justice. However, in the process of seeking justice, you should not be killing your own people because they're not quite doing what you want to do. That's Fëanor for you. I say, big name, takes the unpleasant route to Middle-earth, and it's worth mentioning that Galadriel and other Noldor that are a little bit more sensible take a far harder route without the need for ships. That is a measure of just how tough the Noldor are or were. And again, this is sort of something that leans into what we've seen so far in the Rings of Power. Is Galadriel is sort of very powerful. Very powerful. By the time we get to the Hobbit trilogy, or the Hobbit book, and the Lord of the Rings, she is without doubt the most powerful individual on Middle-earth who can and does oppose Sauron. Which is why, sort of, with the Hobbit, Peter Jackson sort of indulged us with that awesome scene when the White Council confronts Sauron. Because in the Hobbit, that's just referred to. There's no chapter devoted to this. It's just sort of, Gandalf sort of like, we dealt with a necromancer. And it was really good service to the lore. In particular, the fact that Galadriel goes all dual-natured, shows her true sort of angry presentation of her power to banish Sauron to Mordor, which is an important aspect of what I'll do a video of at some point, or it might be now that I'm doing a podcast with a few friends about the Rings of Power, we will discuss about magic in Middle-earth. Because it's, without spending too much time, it's not all Harry Potter, Wingardium Leviosa and Avada Kedavra showy stuff. It's deeper than that. But that's another conversation for another time. Mainly just giving you some gravity towards what has gone on before that we've had a mention of, and that we can have a little bit of a geek out about, in terms of that scene between Elrond and Celebrimbor in the second episode of The Rings of Power. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Take care out there. Soon be time for episode 3. We'll see what happens. Goodbye.